Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna bring our guest on. Let's see here. Mr. Blake, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Are you on your phone or are you doing the computer?
I am on my phone. Something's wrong with the audio on my computer, so I'm going to fix that this week. But for now, it's on the phone.
Yeah, no worries. I was just kind of checking. So, folks, let me introduce you to our guest for the day and just kind of give you a little bit of background. So, this is Mr. Blake Anderson, who lived in Nashville about a year and a half ago, and him and I ended up meeting and becoming really good friends. And then he started trading with Team Nashville for a few months before kind of just traversing the world and becoming a nomad. For how long was that, Blake?
A true nomad for 3 months, and by true nomad, I mean kind of living out of a tent, Jeep. But I would still say that I'm kind of a nomad a little bit. But I think I'm finally settling into Colorado now. I just have too much love for the state.
Yeah, Colorado's a beautiful, beautiful place. And then after that, like I'm gonna call it a solo man journey. Then you went and worked in New York City for a firm, a proprietary capital firm, trading full time. And so Blake is a full time real life trader. He trades for a living. That's what he does. And we're gonna here to interview him, ask questions. He's been in real life trading. He's been in the trading rooms for a long time. He's an amazing guy, great friend of mine. He's also a male model, very good looking. Just an incredible person overall. So Blake, just tell me, how did you get involved in trading? Let's just always start there. It's always a good combo.
Yeah, let's clarify. I'm not a male model. Yes. So it was 2012. I was working a full-time job, and I just saw some advertisements for trading education out there. And my background is I came from a very small town. We never discussed stocks or the markets. And I was exposed to a little bit in college, and it just piqued my interest. And I bought one of those courses, and it was kind of off to the races from there. I think I probably studied and took those courses for about 6 months before I was ready to dive in. And when I dove in, I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
Yeah.
And lost consistently to start with. And I think that was probably one of the best things that really happened to me, honestly. It really piqued my interest. And I was so curious as to why the things that I studied didn't actually play out in the markets. I could visually see these patterns that were taught to me, but I didn't understand how to manage risk. And, what happens when these things don't play out like I've studied. And for the last 5 years, that's just kind of been it is, hey, I learned this. How do I advance that? And how do I get better? And that was just kind of it. Just took an online course, and then it just led me down the path.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting that you started losing initially, because sometimes like what happened with me, I started winning immediately, and that became a horrible thing. I usually tell people, if you start trading and you lose the first 2 or 3 months and you keep doing it, you're in a good position, because if you win the first 2-3 months, you get really excited, you do something dumb, you risk too much money. One of those situations. Did you start out day trading, or was it longer term?
Yeah, it was longer term. So I was working a full-time job, and to your point, I was the trade that I put on was a winner at first. And no one told me, hey, this thing, it just doesn't keep going up forever. So I was profitable, I was green. I was like, all right, well, hey, it's a good trade. I don't have to manage it from here. And it turned into a loser in a couple of weeks. But it was a swing trade. And that's probably what I did for the first 4 or 5 months before I found a way to start day trading.
Yeah. So what's your primary focus now as far as strategies go?
I would say probably, okay. Well, let me preface this before I say it depends where we are in the season. If we're in earnings season, pretty much 90 to 95% of it is day trading.
Right.
And as we start coming out of that, I go back to some of the names that I day traded, and I'll start swing trading them via options or just buying and selling the actual stock itself. So as I'm building, when I wake up during earnings season and I day trade these, I compile these lists every day. And as I'm doing that, as earnings season starts to come to an end, those 6 weeks or so start to come to an end, I start really, really scanning through those. And I'm familiar with them at that point. I know the numbers. I kind of know the fundamentals. I know the charts. I know the personalities. And then I'll start swing trading off of those until we get into the next earnings season.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, I like it. So you're mostly day trading. Okay, so what? Tell us your approach. What do you look for? What do you keep an eye out?
So on day trades, I think the best ones happen when there's a surprise, and that can be, let's say, a big earnings beat. And I'll look at a number of things. So if I see a big earnings beat and I see something opening up above, we'll use 52-week highs as an example. And I know there's a high short interest. You can look at short float. I'll see how it opens up, and I know what's supposed to happen in theory. And if it follows those rules, I'll put on a trade. And a lot of times when I day trade, I try to think bigger term or longer term.
Okay.
Because I know if these are a big surprise, and you go back and you look at some of these big surprises, let me think of a few. Cree, prime example, PII, all these really crushed it, and there was high short float on them, and they really, really went. And I know that these things can trend for a couple of days. So I try not to, if I buy this on the open, I try not to sell it after I get, speaking of real life trading terms, if I get 1 R on it, I'm usually not scaling out very, very much, because I know these things can run the entire day or even months and never come back to that point. Yeah. So those are probably my go-to, my biggest day trades. And that can be to the upside or to the downside.
Are you more a bearish or bullish trader, do you find?
For some reason, this past earnings season, all my big trades were to the bullish side. Nice. And just lining all that stuff up, short interest, good numbers. And I really backed off even the daily charts and went to a weekly.
Right.
And started trading off those. It's kind of, so Zane, I don't know if Zane's in here. He kind of makes fun of me sometimes because I'll trade a 1 minute and a weekly. I'll have those two up. Makes a lot of sense, right? So yeah, most of them have been bullish, but in the past, I'd say more bearish, because as a day trader, it seems like the panic, the fear always moves faster, and that makes it easy for a day trade. So what I tried to do was, this time in earnings season, since we're just in a bullish market, flip that to the other side. And what happens was kind of the same reaction as when a lot of people are short and someone comes out with surprise numbers. It's that same fear, panic, but just to the other side. People have to exit those shorts.
Yeah, no, totally, absolutely. And they got to run, they got to buy the cover. You get that squeeze going on, starts happening, and then the buying can be fun when it really, really starts kicking in. It's just usually slower, but it can be a fun ride for sure.
Yeah, I would say that day trading, some of the names that we're used to, where I'll call it true buying, where the institutions, the bigger money, the smarter money is buying. They're not buying on breakouts. And as a day trader, it's really, really hard to time those. Yeah. So the only way that the best day trading method for me is to, just like when people are wrong and they have to sell it, so when people are wrong and they have to buy it back, and you get those squeezes or those big, fast moves up. Those are fun as day trading. Those make it a lot easier.
Sure. How are you for how's November looking for you so far? How many hours are you up?
November. So always come out. October was incredible. The beginning of November was great, and then always transitioning from, hey, stop day trading so much to swing trading.
Yeah.
Can get me a little bit. Let's see, 14 or 15 for the month.
Okay. Hey, there you go, man. So you're beating me again.
Well, I had a good run. I had 42 R's in 10 days or so. So I gave some of that back, but yeah, we'll take it.
Gotcha, man. Gotcha. Well, hey, dude, congrats. That's awesome. That was very, very good. Let's talk psychology for a second. What's one of the stupidest things you've ever done that you can remember?
Oh, we're still talking trading?
Yeah. Yes. Let's keep it a trading. Sure.
Um. Oh, one of the. Whew. I've done a lot of dumb things in trading, and I still have to check myself on that. Um. I don't know. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, I've just done. It's just so much coming to me because I've made so many dumb mistakes, so many dumb moves before
Okay, so let me
that
ask
I
you.
could.
Yeah, so let's say you have someone who is really interested in trading, and they say, "Okay, Blake, teach me something." If you have one word of wisdom to give someone brand new who wants to day trade, what do you tell them?
Ooh, be a good loser. I honestly think that as a male type A personality, played sports all my life, all that stuff, that I hated losing.
Yeah,
And it wasn't until I understood that my win percentage is like 42%. And
yeah,
it wasn't until I understood that you have to be a good fast loser and let the ones that you're right on, let them play out, that I became a profitable trader, because I would let my ego get in the way. I'd say, "Oh no, I planned this out all week. This is the trade. It should work. It has to work." And until I became a really good loser, yeah, I would consistent. I would make money. I just wouldn't know how to hold on to it.
interesting,
And
interesting.
yeah,
That's a big one because now, first of all, guys, as a caveat, side note, Blake and myself did play a sport together, softball. And he was the best person on the team, but we lost every game. But he handled it like a champion. So I will say that, like you might have been a bad loser at one point, and me too, by the way, me too. Right, the Type A alpha male. I don't like to lose. That's a huge takeaway though, because a lot of people don't like being wrong, and we're created, we're grown, we adapt over time, we're raised to that being wrong is a bad thing, right? If you're in school, if you're taking tests, if you're wrong you fail. If you're a kid and you're wrong you get in trouble. You're not supposed to be wrong. And then you get into this trading world, and one of the traders in this room, right, let me actually see if he's right now. I see this person's in here, but there are traders in here right now that are, well, let's just say rocket scientists for better use of terms. And that person would say, Jeremy, if I'm wrong in my job, people lose their lives. So it's hard for me to transition that. So what helped you be wrong better? How did that transition happen for you?
well, being wrong enough, and you come to a point to where you just have to ask yourself, "Hey, is what's more important, making money or being wrong?" So once I kind of answered that, then I started asking myself on the trades, well, so you have this PII chart up, and you can see on day one, it broke and it ran. Well, I built a case for that pre-market, and I have to ask myself, when it doesn't do exactly what I've seen enough of these and how they move and how the chart should look. When it doesn't do that, then something's wrong. I'm not right, and I have to exit it immediately. And I've been on the other side of that where I'm like, oh, I'm not wrong. And I've held on to these for so long that it takes me so long to recover from that one loss that I would rather just be wrong. And if
Yeah.
something sets up 15 minutes later or 2 days later, then guess what? I have another opportunity to be right. But I just don't want to put myself in this big hole because I'm too afraid to be wrong. So to answer your question, after I got past this point of, all right, it's okay to be wrong, then every trade I put on, I ask myself, what should happen? Is it happening? If it is happening, let the trade play out. If it's not, be really, really cautious and be ready to take it off. And guess what? There will be another trade, probably 2 minutes later, but there's always another trade. So just go ahead and take it off.
Makes sense. Do you feel like, no, this might be a personal question, but do you feel like that's transferred to your personal life at all? Because for me, I feel like it totally has. Like, again, I used to love competition. I still do. But when I lose now at whatever it is, I'm like, well, whatever. Like, I just accept losses better, I feel like.
Oh my gosh. Well, you first of all, guys, if you ever get the opportunity to play a sport with Jeremy, do it. Because you think he's entertaining on here. Out on the field, it's another level. It's so much fun. But you probably saw in softball, it's like, yeah, I used to be extremely competitive. I don't know. I guess it does translate over into that. It's translated into, well, I'm a single guy now, but when I date girls, just anything I do, I just feel like it has translated over. Yeah, I would absolutely say it's pretty much
Yeah.
changed me as a person.
Wow, I love it. I love it. I love it. I know we're not going to dive into too much about this, but what's on the topic of everyone's mind right now is they heard me mention you worked for someone in New York City, some type of capital environment. So is there any way that we can, how deep in that rabbit hole can we go? How much can you tell us? What was that experience like? We need to hear all about it. What did you do? Tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that you and I spoke about it before I actually pulled the trigger on it. Well, there's a couple people in the room, or on Team Nashville that I spoke to, just getting advice, and I actually talked to a guy that worked for the firm beforehand. And there's to anything. There's always pros and cons. And I would say if anyone ever has the opportunity, it's not a bad idea to take advantage of that if you plan on trading for full time, because well, let me stop there for a second. So don't go into a firm thinking that they're going to teach you the holy grail, that they're going to lay all of these strategies out in front of you and say, hey, go trade these, go be a robot and trade these strategies. That is absolutely not what happens. In fact, you're probably gonna, it's not going to be this exponential learning curve where you're going to learn more than you will say with RLT. It's just not going to happen. What you will see is that no one person, and I think this goes for everyone in the world, no one person has the same trading strategy. Everyone may look at the same thing. Everyone's going to manage it differently. But, I saw everything from arbitrage to people strictly trading imbalances to people trading very similarly to, we do in RLT, to people trading OTC stocks, and they specialize in these things. So if I had to give any advice is, if you're a beginning trader, I think you should go down the road of playing with a few different strategies, but don't go down that road forever. Find a specialty and really, really get good at it, and it'll pay off for you. And don't think that you have to trade every name, every candle, every day, because that's not what the pros do. That's not what the guys that are making, I see these guys lose and make cars like 50 grand a day. I've seen people lose 30 grand in a second.
Wow.
But they don't trade all the time. They know what they're looking for. And when it shows its face, they load up. So
that's
yeah,
wild. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, it's a wild world, but with the firm thing, just don't think that if you go to a firm, it's the holy grail. You're not going to have someone beside you teaching you anything else that, say, Jeremy can't teach you.
How many people?
Ultimately, you have to kind of find yourself in your style.
Yeah. How many people were there? Were in it? Was it? Were you in a room? Were you in a conference room? Were you in a desk, like a cubicle? How did it look?
Yeah, so you have everyone has. We'll see if I can give you a good visual picture here. So you have we'll call it 5 rows, probably 10 deep on each side, and not all the chairs are full. Traders come and go. 4 to 6 screens in front of you. You have, say, Squawk on the intercom playing constantly, feeding you news. And all you hear are keys punching. Every once in a while, you hear someone bang on the desk, or if something crazy happens, you hear this loud, this gasp for air.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in a conference room. It was an open room, and then you have conference rooms and such to the side. You have your trading coach that has an office. You have the co-founders and such in their office, and then you do have a conference room where people will have technology meetings or just overall general trading meetings. But yeah, it's pretty quiet overall. A lot of people think of there's some yelling and stuff like that, but there's really not a lot of that.
What was your schedule? Give us like your daily routine. You wake up, you be awesome. How's that look for you? when you were there, because we're gonna, at some point we're gonna touch on this just nomadic experience you had, because that's, I think, a lot of people's dreams. We got to touch on that a little bit. What was
Yeah.
when you were in New York City? What was the schedule?
So it would take me about, well, I lived like a mile and a half, 2 miles from the office, but it would take me probably a good 45 minutes to get there.
No way.
So I would wait.
The mile.
Yeah, man. It would. It really would. New York's crazy.
Wow.
So I would, well, that mile and a half to 2 miles. I think it was 1.8 to be exact.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd wake up at 6 o'clock, shower really fast, hop on the subway. The markets there open at 9:30, obviously, and I would get there 7 to 7:30. You would get there. We would have meetings, once or twice a week before the morning, just to kind of update make sure everyone's on the same page with news, understanding overall market sentiment, where we are in the cycle of the markets in terms of earnings and rotations. And I heard you talk about the Santa Claus rally, so I'm sure that's a big topic with these retails, especially since the retails have been beaten down. Yep. So that's one thing we may talk about is, hey, retails have been really, really beaten down. You have the Santa Claus rally coming. It's a really, really good time to maybe trade some. They're releasing good earnings, so maybe a really good time to focus on those. So we would have the Monday morning meeting. Sometimes we do it, every other morning or so, and then you'd go to your desk and you would talk to some of the people beside you. At these firms, a lot of times they have teams, so you may be a part of. If there's a trader that's been there for a while, you may be a part of that person's team. And you would do a review with your entire team for 30 minutes, around 8 o'clock or so. And then at the firms, a lot of people start trading pre-market, trying to establish, longer term positions or so. And then there are people that sit at their desk all day from 9:30 until 5 o'clock. I'm not that type of person, so I would often leave around lunch, go get a quick workout, try to enjoy some sunshine, and then come back an hour and a half before the close. Those 30 minutes, I would kind of put my plan together, and then I would actively trade that last hour.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of it. You would have some aftermarket meetings and such, but it is a full-time job. There's no question about it.
So were you able to get up and leave whenever you wanted to? Did you have to clock in? How did that look?
Yeah, no clocking in. Most of these guys are going to hire you. There's some out there that'll pay you a small salary, but you have to understand most of it's you're hired as a contractor, and you kind of eat what you kill. You're responsible for your income. One thing to touch on is, there are splits involved. There's desk fees. So if you're making, say, $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, don't actually think that's going to be your income, because it's not. A lot of these guys will help you size up. But if anyone out there is thinking about going to a firm, I would definitely ask, hey, what's my daily stop? What are my risk parameters? What are my desk fees, and what are the splits? And I would make sure those all make sense, because a lot of times you go, oh, I made 20 grand this month, and it could be less than if you were sitting at home and you made 5 grand. So if anyone out there is considering it, I would definitely look into those things and make sure you do the math and the numbers on that.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Have you? I'm sure you have, but did you have any experiences of anyone just going bust? They show up 2 weeks later, they lost 100,000, they're out.
So the risk parameters were set up to where you couldn't just be done that fast, but there are definitely traders that come in and out, and you wonder, you're just like, hey, where did this guy go? He just didn't show up. He stopped showing up. And sometimes you can get some feedback from the floor manager. They'll tell you. But when I first got there, I was like, hey, are all the chairs empty? Do these belong to people? And they'll tell you, hey, traders, they come and they go.
Yeah. Wow. Man, so okay. So what about the positive side of it? Has anyone there were they making the killing? Who was the best person? How much were they making, kind of thing? Like, is it what we think about? Do they drive a Ferrari? They get out. You have an usher take your coat, doorman, wipe your shoes off. He walks in, makes $1 million, leaves, like that.
Oh, absolutely. That's exact. No. So the best trade, there's a couple there. It's funny, they all make similar money and they all trade differently.
Wow.
And I don't mind breaking those down, the different styles of those guys another time, but
Yeah.
you would never ever know that those guys make the money that they do. And to touch on your side, the positive part of trading with a firm is that if you get in there and you get established and you overcome some of the what could be tight risk parameters, what they're doing is they're trying to make you prove yourself. And if you can prove yourself, they're going to find a way to try to back you. Now, I will admit, you have to be a really, really good trader to overcome some of these risk parameters. But if you can do that, they'll back you, and they'll give you a lot of leeway. And because they know if they lose you can just go to another firm. If you're that good of a trader,
Right.
you can always negotiate splits, things like that. But you have to get over that initial hump with them to begin with. And your daily stop could go from say 1,000 to 50,000, and that's a lot of money. There's a guy, I still trade with the firm, so I can still see their P&Ls. I can see every trade execution they make. I can go back look at their charts and see where they made executions. And probably the biggest trader there is averaging $30,000 to $50,000 a day right now, and he's done that the last couple months.
Right.
It's not a style that we're familiar with. It's a lot of low float stuff. And then there's another trader that'll put on say 50,000 shares and scalp it for a few cents, and he'll trade 6 million shares in a day. And then there's one trader that's probably more like me, where he sits around, he'll trade, he'll dabble, but when he sees it, he'll risk 4 or 5 hours on it.
Yeah.
And they all make really, really, really good money, and they've had to prove themselves to do that, to get those risk parameters in order to be able to do that.
So I don't.
So no.
Go ahead. Sorry, let me cut you off.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, none of those guys come in. None of those guys are flashy. You would never know it if you saw them on the street that they make that kind of money. They all wear jeans. One of them wears that backwards hat into the office. That's another thing. It's very casual, which is very unlike New York. But they're all very, very casual. Jeans, backwards hats, T-shirts, type of thing.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Very interesting. So teach us something new a little bit about low floats, because I know you work with low floats. I talk about it, but not as often as I probably should. Teach us about 4 or 5 minutes about what is low float? What does that mean? I know you can scan for it. There's a lot of traders who do look for low float short squeezes, but just give us more intel on how you approach it, or how others approach it, or what's your take on low floats.
Yeah, I'm not very good with the low floats. I know the anatomy of them. I know what these traders look for, so they understand the story. And when earlier I mentioned these guys compile a team of people, and what they do is they try to make a well-rounded group. They'll have one guy that's really good with the news and understands reading filings. They'll have a guy that is just a beast in terms of executing. They'll have a guy that's good with technology. So when they have their meetings, they break down these low floats that are gapping up, I don't know, 70, 80%. And they'll say, hey, is it legit news? Are they just pumping this thing? Is it time for a secondary? So they'll run through these things. Now, most of these guys short these low floats because they know that they're garbage stocks. And at some point, they're going to come back down. The problem is, when is the timing?
Yeah, because when it happens, it's so fast.
It's so fast. You have to already be in your position. It's really hard to get locates.
Yep.
For you guys that don't, so locates, and to be able to actually short these things, I've seen people pay $60 for 100 shares to short these things. The price can really, really get up there in terms of commissions and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And
are they doing a lot of short? Do they short the low floats, or do they buy them?
So I would say 80% of it is shorting.
Okay.
And if they're not shorting, they're just waiting on the short. And then there's a couple other guys that try to get long. Funny story really fast is, I told you earlier, you can kind of see everyone's trades and everyone's positions. Well, you have to give those traders permission, and they started taking each other off because in low floats, if you're battling each other, you can kind of, if someone's loaded up short and they're going to be wrong, you can just get long. So yeah, they were competing against each other in the firm. So they they had to stop doing that. But I would say 80% of them try to get short, and that's why you do see these things run really, really big. HMNY, prime example, probably the latest one to really, really run, was one that just a ton of people were loaded up short in this thing.
Yep. So here's HMNY, right?
Yep.
Oh, are you able to see my screen, or I can? I don't know.
Yeah, I can. I can actually see it.
Okay, cool.
So what happens is, all those shorts get squeezed. Brokers start covering people's shorts, and you get these huge runs. And if you're not at a firm, this is another perk of a firm. If you're not at a firm, you probably can't handle that type of drawdown, and these guys can. So I've seen people be down 200 grand, and then the next day they're up 50 grand, and then the next day they're up 400 grand on the trade.
Yeah.
Not my type of risk tolerance.
Yep.
But that is their edge, and they've gotten really, really good at it, and the firm backs them on those risk parameters.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this one, so we have HMNY, XNet was one, XNET.
Oh yeah.
This is one that's happening right now. This is some shorters are coming in on this one. You have Riot, ROIOT. This was a big one. So why? I mean, I know like some people like Ross Cameron from Warrior Traders. A few of the people they're playing the long side. Do you have any? Alexa, so you mentioned you mentioned you're not that good at it. Is that just because you don't? Why is that? Like you don't short, you don't play it long. What's your thoughts?
So I've dabbled in it. I don't think. Well, a couple reasons. I don't know that my risk parameters are set up for that.
Yeah.
Once I started calculating some of the commissions, looking at that Riot, once it gets up to $18, $20, there's very few people that'll give you shares to short on that. And when they are, they're really, really expensive.
Yeah.
So by the time, I factor in commissions, the fact that I'm not very, are you talking about going to the long side or either?
Either one. Yeah, either one.
Yeah, I'm just not. I think this goes back to, I could try to trade that off of technical analysis, but what these guys that are shorting it do, they know the story, they understand the story, and they've gotten so good. They've traded these so long, they've gotten really good at knowing, hey, is this company just raising money and then they're going to offer a secondary and it's going to open up 20% lower? Are they locking up shares? So a lot of times they'll lock up shares on these stocks. So the only people playing it are the people shorting it, and they're just stumbling over each other to short and then just to cover. So these guys have gotten really good at seeing that on the tape, to understanding the story. They'll dig deep into the filings. One of the most profitable stocks for the firm this year was, what's the ships one?
Dry ships, DRYS?
Yeah, DRYS. And what they would do is they would get short. Oh, wow, it's moved up a little bit. But this guy publicly came out and said that he was just going to keep raising money and then selling his shares every time they did the reverse split.
Yeah.
Publicly said that, but the general public doesn't take the time to read the filings.
Right.
So these guys would just get short, and then it would reverse split, and then they'd make a bunch of money the next day when it sells off.
Wow.
So personally, I don't understand those stories and the moves, and I do use the tape quite a bit to trade, but those guys are really, really pros at it, and they understand those more than I do.
Yeah. Totally.
So I avoid them. I think I could make money on them, but over the course of 100 trades, I don't know that I can.
Gotcha. Very, very insightful. Anyone here listening in right now, do you guys have any questions? Feel free to throw it in the chat pane. Derek says, what do you think about ROIT and its low floats? So Riot, I think, is going to do very, very similar to what most of them done. You got those two spikes and got this kind of like nice little wave rotation, but I think we're going to go a little bit lower. Did you trade Riot on this run up, Blake?
I did not. I will say the guys at the firm have been trading it though. And anything with the name blockchain in it right now is getting some hype. So
yeah,
I have no opinion on that one because it's a little bit outside of my what I'm really, really good at. So I try not to give away R's on things that I don't feel like I'm an expert in.
Totally. So tell us then. I know you've filled us in a little bit. So what are you an expert in, man? What's your day when you wake up? What are you looking for?
It's simple as it is. I know I trade for a firm, looking for a holy grail. It's those gaps. It's those gaps where I know a lot of people are either surprised to the upside or to the downside. And I think in terms of managing it, one of the biggest things I've learned over time is that positioning sizing can be everything.
Okay.
Because if I'm positioned right, I can control my emotions. I can just let things happen. And if I'm right, here's the secret: is I don't necessarily play off every candle. If I'm right, going back to that PII, that CRE, FSLR was another one. Sometimes I'll literally put a stop at the low of day, and I'll let that thing trend all day long. Because I know this story where a lot of people are like, oh, let me scale out here. I'm going to add back here. And people with the firm still do this. I'll just kind of step away and I'll start scanning and just let it work for me.
Right. Make money while you sleep. Was this the day that you played First Solar right here?
That's it. So go to a weekly on that.
Okay. Here's the weekly.
So you can kind of see where it's breaking that level. What, April of 2016?
Yep, right about here.
Yeah, and I think the short float on it was in the 30%. So it was one of those, hey, I saw some movement pre-market. I saw some offers getting taken out really, really hard. Saw a few bids hold, and then I think I risked 4R on the trade.
Yeah.
And it ended up being, I don't know, I think I made a little over 8R, 10R, something like that.
Right on. Very, very nice. Very nice. What time frames? I mean, you mentioned earlier that you have the weekly and the daily pulled up. I'm sorry, the weekly and the 1 minute. What other trades are you working with?
I'll back to help me not overmanage it. I'll back away from a 1 minute after the first hour. I'll go to a 5 minute and then a 15 minute. And then on my swing trades, I use a 60 minute, daily, and a weekly.
Gotcha. Now, when you're day trading, I know the answer to this, but are you day trading stocks or options?
Stocks.
Do you ever day trade options? And if not, why?
I don't. And I think that it's probably not because I don't think it's profitable. I think it's extremely profitable for some people. I think I got good at something and I stick to it.
Yeah.
Now, swing trading, I'll swing trade options. But I really just tried to focus on day trading with the equities. But maybe I need to kind of venture out a little bit and try that.
No, man, you keep doing it. You keep doing your thing. Don't even stress about it.
I will say that sometimes if I know I'm right, or if the stock's doing exactly what I expected it to do, I will sell into, if this thing just, like if you went back to that FSLR on day one, it just was on a rocket out the gates. So if something comes out like that, I will sell a little bit. And what I look for is that first VWAP retest. And if usually they'll hold right under and then they'll go. I'll add, and sometimes I'll just put a stop right under that where it curled under VWAP. So it's so simple, but once you do the homework to research the trades, the fundamentals, and then you say, hey, if this does this, then I know I'm right. Then you kind of make it simple and let it work for you at that point.
Yeah. So really quickly, you pronounce VWAP with a soft A. Why do you do that?
Well, I used to say VWAP, but everyone at the firm says VWAP. So tomato. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, dude, I feel really weird saying VWAP when everyone's saying VWAP. So trust me, Jeremy, I already sounded so out of place coming in with a Southern accent, and everyone being from New York or Connecticut.
You're from Alabama.
I'm like, I'm from Alabama.
It doesn't get more south than Alabama. Like, that's the pinnacle of Southern is Alabama.
I know.
Oh man, that is funny. That is very funny. Well, cool. That's awesome. I'm learning a lot. So tell me then a little bit about this journey that you had as a trader, because at the end of the day, I mean, when people trade, they're trying to trade to achieve some goal. Either it's a lifestyle, cash income, some type of freedom. And I want to harp on this a little bit because I'm really proud of you, because what you did is you honestly lived the dream that most people would want to do, where you just kind of let the world take you wherever it wanted to, and you still traded and you still had a good time. So tell us a little bit about that. How long ago was that? A year and a half? A year ago?
Yeah, so I sold my condo in Nashville in August of 2016. Yeah, and I've been pretty much a nomad ever since.
Man, it's amazing. So you sold your condo in Nashville, went to, what was your first stop? Like traveling. What was your first traveling stop?
You know what? Now that I think about it, Jeremy, do you remember when it was you, me, who all was with us? Me, you, I think Zane was with it. Who all was with us when we came out to Denver?
Yeah. So me, you, Justin Linderman,
Oh yeah,
Zane,
Justin.
Ashley, and Stan and his wife.
Exactly. Oh yes. Sorry, Justin, if you're on here. Definitely didn't forget you. So that was the first time I'd ever been west and seen mountains, and I just fell in love. Like my eyes were just huge. I couldn't wait to get back out. And then I went to Utah to do a Ragnar relay, which is a 200-mile relay run, like a month or two afterwards. So the mountains had just like captured my heart. I was like, I have to get out there. So I literally came home, called my realtor, said, hey, I'm ready to sell my place. I'm going out west. And it sold. I sold everything, all my furniture. I had way too many clothes. Sold all that stuff. Anything that I couldn't fit in my Jeep wasn't coming with me. So I loaded up the Jeep, put a rooftop tent on it, and for 3 months I went to Colorado, and then I just slowly ventured up through Yellowstone, so through Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Washington State, and then into California a little bit before it got too cold where I just couldn't sleep outside anymore. And then I came back to Denver right before Halloween of 2016 and lived in Denver for 6 months before I went to New York for 6 months. And I just got back to Denver
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Man, that's amazing. So, what was, I don't know, like the big breakthrough when you're there by yourself, just surrounded by mountains with nothing but you and, your 3G card for trading.
Well, you learn a lot about, yeah, you kind of learn a lot. I know everyone, it's pretty cliche to say you learn a lot about yourself, but you really do. You kind of figure out what's important to you. Is that some people need social interaction. Some people get their energy from that. Some people get their energy from just being by themselves or doing things with their hands. And I think what I found was a little bit of a mix of all of it. I love being around people. I love the markets, and I really miss doing things with my hands. You got to build your fire every night. You got to build your tent. I found out that I was drinking less. Actually, I didn't even need caffeine. I slept way better because I wasn't in front of the distractions that we're in front of every day. I don't know. I just really, really fell in love, and it just confirmed that when I went back to New York and was just city life to the max.
Yeah.
It just made me realize that, hey, I belong. I need a good balance in my life. I need the social. I need the outdoor stuff. I need the markets. I love them. So, yeah, it really did help me find what's important to me and what means the most to me in life.
I love it. I love it. How'd you get the job up there at the firm in New York City? What was that process like?
Ooh, good question. So I will say, if you get a job with a firm, especially if they're backing you 100%, that you're going to need a track record, and you're going to need an edge that you can explain. And when I say that, I don't mean, oh, well, even me saying, oh, I trade gaps that, they put in this candle, they hold, that just doesn't really fly. You have to have a very, very detailed edge, and that includes, hey, what's your drawdown? You have to be able to measure drawdowns, talk about multiple markets, not just bullish markets, but bearish markets or sideways markets, can you trade something in all of those? If you're going to a prop firm that, I forget what the actual term is, but where say you put up 10 grand and then they give you, I don't know, 100 grand intraday buying power, you don't have to necessarily have all those things because your 10 grand is going to be your drawdown. Basically, they're going to give you the buying power, but they're not taking a lot of risk on you.
No, not at all.
So and I think that's probably a good, just talking about that. If you're a trader and you can't clearly define your edge and how you trade different markets and things like that, it's probably a good time to reflect anyways. I know I did, because I was like, oh yeah, of course I can explain my edge. But when it really came down to putting it on paper and measuring drawdown and stuff like that, I was like, oh boy,
yeah,
maybe I need a little more work. So it's a good time to reflect on your trading business anyways.
yeah, man, that makes sense. How'd you find? Now I know we're not going to mention. So a few people have asked. We're not going to mention the name of the firm, but there's thousands of them in New York City. Did you just Google? Do you have a friend request that, recommend it? How'd you track down the one that you ended up going with?
Yeah, so I had a friend of a friend. Actually, you introduced me to the mutual friend of this guy that traded there.
Okay.
You probably know who I'm talking about. Her name's Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a mutual friend, and she just mentioned it casually one day, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to him. So I spoke to him, and it was a firm that I'd kind of heard about. I was familiar anyway, so I just reached out to them, and yeah, they were like, all right, well, this is what we'll need from you. And they're like, actually, funny story is, I thought I was just going to be doing it remotely. So I called him. I was like, hey, I'm ready. Like, set me up on the software. Let's do this. And he was like, well, are you in New York yet? I was like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, you have to be here. You have to be here on the floor for 6 months before we let you trade remotely. And I was like, I'll be there. I'll be there May 1st, actually.
Wow.
And that was 3 weeks out. So yeah. But yeah, I just heard through a lot of these guys advertise, they publish stuff. So there's many of them out there. And then I got to talk to a guy that had traded for them for 2 years.
Gotcha. What was your favorite part about New York City?
Oh man, it's so cultured. Anyone in their, I don't know, early 20s, or especially if you're single, I highly recommend it. That seeing that type of lifestyle, the hustle, the fast pace, experiencing different cultures, and it's not good or bad. It's just different. And I think it was really, really healthy for me to experience that. I don't want to live there, but I really appreciate New York City, but definitely how cultured it is. And you just, on some level, you have to appreciate how hard people hustle there.
Yeah, for sure. Totally have to. So what's the next the trading goal for you? Like, what's the next goal, plateau achievement that you're trying to reach?
Day trade options. I'm kidding. No, always, the market's changed. That's the cool thing about this. Is one thing I love about this is, some people, my old sales job, I'd wake up and I knew that if I went into work, I was making money. Or even if I didn't go into work, sometimes as an account manager, I was just making money. What I love about the markets is they constantly change. You constantly have to learn new strategies, new edges. So yeah, it's just continuing that. I would love to, I feel like it's my turn to give back a little bit. I've had so many people help me along the way when they didn't have to. I've had people that I met on day one when I was going through a lot of stuff we'll call drawdown, that just gave me the best advice ever. So I feel like at some point in the near future, it's my turn to give back a little bit. So I'd love to do that. I'm heavily involved in the crypto space right now. So
yeah,
just trying to keep up with that's a full-time job in itself. I think it's time for me to kind of settle down in an area a little while, find a home. But yeah, I think the big thing is how do I give back a little bit? How do I become, because I kind of isolated myself with the firm and stuff like that with my trading to really make sure my strategies were good. And now that I've kind of honed that in, I've found some things that would work. I think I'd love to do that.
Gotcha. Right on, man. Okay. Very, very cool. Trying to think if anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Blake Anderson. Are you in you're in Denver right now?
I am in Denver, yes.
Have you picked up snowboarding or skiing at all?
I'm definitely skiing over snowboarding. Uh, Zane, one of the real life traders, and I went on Monday. It's quite the experience. Still a little sore from it, but yeah, I'm a skier.
Oh man. Oh, I can only imagine skiing with Zane. What a day. That is.
He's pretty good. He's
I
not
know.
bad at all.
No, I'm saying he's just an amazing guy. I love that dude.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have a good time. I mean, we're skiing halfway down the mountain. We'll talk about a trade or something. Then we'll ski the other.
Yeah, yeah. That is very cool. What was the best trade that you remember this month that you recall in November? Or a trade that
Ooh,
just pops up a lot. Maybe not your best one, but
actually, let me look. Um, well, just some off from today. I put it on, made it public. The Gilead swing trade, but I day traded it as well. Made some good money off it. GPS has been a good one. These retails. So like ANF, Abercrombie and Fitch. These retails for some reason the day ones haven't been good, but the day twos exploded. So I just kind of played that thesis for GPS. Worked well. Trying to think. I don't. For October was I guess was FSLR, and PII. Oh, Overstock, OSTK.
Yep, that was a fun one. Right here, right
I
there.
called a really good Roku. Yeah, I called a really good Roku short. And for you guys out there that aren't familiar with reading the tape, if that's a whole different level, but and it takes probably 12 months to get good at. But that was a trade basically seeing the books change, and when you see it, just load up in it. And literally, I played like a 10-cent risk on it, made like $4.
So how
Just
good
because you see something change really fast on the books.
Yeah, so tell me about that, like level 2 reading. How good are you at that? I'm terrible. 0.
It's not. It's one of those things. So most people that have like an engineer mindset, it's really hard for them because it's not 100%.
Yeah.
But I've gotten much better at it. Just you can kind of see where the big orders are getting filled, and if something's holding a bid, and I have everything on my screen color coded, so it's really easy to see. Or if Teva TEVA from a few months back was probably one of the cleanest things I've ever seen on the tape. Pre-market, no bid could hold. I think it went through like six bids that were trying to hold in a matter of 60 seconds. And you just know that's one just to get short and hold because they're just terrible. Yeah, you can see back in August.
Yep. Oh, that one over there.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, and you could see you didn't even have to really look at the chart. You could just look at the tape and see that they were just crushing every bid that was out there.
Man.
So to answer your question, yeah, I think I've gotten pretty good. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'd say I'm in between intermediate and pro.
There you go. There you go. I like it, man. So tell us a little bit about your setup, rig, trading, like brokers and or charting softwares, all that kind of stuff. Give us kind of what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so I never used any of the charting with the firm. I used TradingView, which sometimes lags, but it didn't matter for me because once I kind of see the chart, I didn't need super real time, and I could also just look at the tape. So I use the firm's proprietary software for, say, my montages, or some people call it market makers, bid ask, level 2, order execution. I use TradingView for charts. For my personal stuff, I use Interactive Brokers, and also have a Tastyworks for some options. So I use multiple, but most of my stuff is with the firm on their proprietary platform.
How many screens do you have, bro?
Bro, at least 12 screens at all times. At least no. People would laugh at me because at the firm I had 4 27-inch monitors, and now I literally trade from a Dell computer that's a 15-inch screen, and then I plug in a USB monitor that's also a 15-inch screen, and it does the job. It it works.
It works. You don't need a lot.
Now, yeah, now when I settle in and sign a lease and stuff like that, I'll probably have two 27 inches or may throw a third one in there. So,
yeah, totally. Man, very, very cool. Well, any questions for me since you're here? I don't know.
What'd you guys trade today? I'm interested.
So Brad traded. So I was I didn't day trade today personally. I was working with some people down here in Nashville on something cool. I'll have to tell you about later. But he traded Bank of America bullish, CMG bullish, and then what was the one he did really well on? MDCO, I think. Yeah, MDCO.
Oh, I saw that one.
MDCO. Not really a gap, but just kind of a strong flush lower into some good support. It could have played it both ways, actually. That brings up a question. Do you ever play anything both ways? You go bullish and then flip to bearish, you just break it down, or do you ever flip your position?
Very rarely. I will do that at times, but so this MDCO, I'd risk an R to the bear side and then maybe a quarter or half an R to the bullish side. And I will say, I know some people trade that if it's the trade, they're going to risk an R. For me, I grade my trades. All right, I'll risk 3 or 4 R's on a trade, or I'll risk a quarter or a half an R. Because sometimes, man, I can still FOMO at times. I'm like, oh, I know I need to be in this, but let me just get in a little bit just to fill the waters. And then sometimes throughout the day, you'll get a better setup where you can make it a full R trade. But to answer your question, yeah, I would trade that, say bearish, and then maybe use half size or quarter side and see if I can trend it up to the bull side.
Yeah, totally. How many trades do you get taken a month? Do you know, like on average?
Let's see. I could probably give you a number. I take a lot. I trade a lot, but I dabble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dabble in a lot in terms of, say, for instance, what you guys would call like an official trade. I really don't take that many, especially during earnings season. I may really just focus on what I'll call the perfect gap. You guys use you say the perfect gap, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think I stole that from you. So like if it's a perfect gap, I'll risk my entire daily stop on it. And I don't recommend that for everyone. But if I get that, then even if I lose, I'm like, all right, because I'll only get 5 to maybe 10 of those a year.
Yeah. Yeah, when it's like that, when it's flawless, when that's just, you look at that thing and you know, I mean, come on, you got to get aggressive at some point. You got to make money. You got to risk money to make money, big time. I mean, that's
I think I mentioned one trader earlier that doesn't trade a lot, but he bought Gilead. Pull up GILD.
Yep.
That big run right before September. The guy bought a ton of Gilead options and risked pretty much like half a month's worth of R's or something crazy. So he hadn't traded in like 2 weeks, hadn't placed a trade, stalked that one, bought that one, boom. He made his 4 or 5 months. And, you're either one of two traders. You either do it slow, make slow, consistent gains, or you dabble, and boom, hit the big trade.
Yeah.
And you wait, exactly what you're looking for on that big trade. And when it's there, you don't hesitate. You put it on.
Yeah. And that's how, so I get people ask me a lot, how they all know my story, losing everything and slowly coming back. And, eventually you slowly churn, right? You make small amounts of money and you risk small to really figure out who you are as a trader, what your style is, what your approach is, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, what you're good at, what you're bad at, right? You understand that and you practice and you give yourself, some time, usually a year and a half of just being in the market and understanding yourself and understanding the markets and getting better and better and better. But then there is going to be a time where you start planning farther and farther in advance. And one of my rules is the longer in advance that I plan something, the more I can risk on it. And that's usually what ended up happening is, to grow an account, and actually really make some money, is you got to throw down something big when everything just says, hey, this is what it is. And you'll know immediately if you're right or wrong. So that's when you have those rules where if it's a perfect trade, if it's a thing you waited for an entire year for, get in and you'll know exactly when you're wrong and just get out. And you can still preserve your capital, even though it's a bigger risk, right? And I think it's harder to do, but there's that fine line of when you're in that situation, you just have to plan it and then follow the plan.
Oh my gosh. Perfectly said. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. You're exactly right. And that's kind of what I find myself doing now.
What do you use for screeners, by the way?
So I use Trade the News, and so I always also, there's a bunch of them out there that'll give you gappers, but Trade the News usually gives me the biggest biggest fundamental stories first in the morning, and then about 30 minutes before, about 20 minutes before the market opens, they'll send me an email that has the pre-market movers. Yeah. And I'll go through those, and I can look from a technical analysis standpoint. Hey, this is where I want this thing to be. This is tradable. And then I'll go back to that first email that gives me the story, whether it's earnings and guidance or someone got approved for, FDA phase 3, whatever it may be. And if I get both of those on the same thing, and then I go and look at a short float, if all those things start lining up, oh man, I get antsy. I start drinking more coffee. I'm like, this is going to be it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if it opens up, if pre-market's acting fine. And when I say pre-market, honestly, I don't really get caught up into too much before 3 to 5 minutes before the market opens, because then you can start seeing people start either panicking to get in or out. And yeah, usually within 5 minutes, I know if that's going to be an awesome trade, or if it's all right, I need to get out and wait for a better setup or whatever it may be. So yeah, Trade the News has been great for me. It's probably 80% of my ideas come from it.
Trade the News. Beautiful. That's a new one for me. I have not heard that one before.
I think it's for retail guys, I think it's like $110 a month or something like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Man, Blake, thank you so much. This has been, that was the whole hour, dude. Actually, a little bit more than an hour.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's great. I will say, I know we talked about a lot of ups and some downs. I will say, you were talking about losing everything. I wish I had a graph of, my net worth throughout this whole trading thing. I'll tell you, it hasn't always been up. There's been a lot of downs, but just got to stick with it and figure out your trading plan and your strategy and your edge, and then find a way to capitalize on it. I think it works out.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you for your time. I vastly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
All right, brother. You rock. I'll see you.
All right, bye.
All right, boys and girls. That was Blake Anderson, real life trader, part of Team Nashville. Been trading with that guy for right at 2 years now. And he's taught me a lot. I've taught him a lot. We've learned a lot together. We've played a lot of football, baseball, awesome stuff. Again, I'm going to try to have these every Wednesday at this time, just interviewing, you guys, interviewing you people, those in the chat pane, those in Slack, those who I've worked with personally, and just asking questions. So at some point, you stick around long enough, you'll get an email from me, and, I'm just going to ask you questions. Let me learn about you and let other people learn about you. And I will say, you don't have to be a profitable trader to get interviewed. Initially, for the first while, it'll probably be that way. But most traders, just say, hey, what's your struggle, right? What are you battling with? How do you think other people can help? What books helped you the most? What your biggest issue is, or whatever the case is. And just giving you guys an idea, my goal is to interview and just learn from the real life trading team, family, and community of just amazing people who we surround ourselves with every day. So, ladies and gentlemen, just gonna wrap it up for me. I'm Audi 5000. No day trades for me today. I did exit the SJM Schmuckers swing trade, and that was it as far as exiting. Entering, we got triggered into 3D printing officially. And Snapchat did not trigger, unfortunately, and I missed Target, and that's one I'm kind of bummed about, but too bad. Ricky says, I was away from the computer for that interview, or you're going to post it up somewhere. You leave that to me, my man. Leave that to me. You guys rock. I'm out. I'll see you later. And until this afternoon, and then, of course, I'll be with you all day tomorrow and Friday. Until then, remember, love life, and trade it. You guys rock. Bye-bye.